So over the last couple of trips out, dog, it really hasn't been terribly cold, terribly warm, so we haven't needed the air conditioning all that much. This is a 50 amp trailer, so we've got a 15K in the living room area, which is ducted up here, and then this is an add-on 13.5. And the last time we were out, and the last couple of times, it's frozen up. Still blows colder than heck. And when I pulled the cover off up top, I don't see any leaks. Usually if you get a leak of Freon that would make it freeze up, you're going to be able to find a greasy fitting or something, because there's oil in these systems, and that oil, a little bit of that oil is going to come out with the Freon if you got a leak. And I don't see any of that. Everything's nice and dry. So there's one thing I want to try before I spend a bunch of money replacing this thing, and that is the antifreeze thermistor, and I'll show you that in a minute. First thing you got to do to get this off, take your grates off and your filters, whatever you want to call those filters, and then there should be 4 screws here, little Phillips heads that come right out. You drop this on your head. Nothing special there. Now you've got another plate here, and this is important. This has to be in there because it's got a plenum up here, which I'll show you in a second, that separates the inlet from the outlet. And if this plenum gets out of whack or bypasses substantially, you can really freeze it up that way, because you'll have super cold air going right into the warm air side. This one is not that way. You can feel it, but I'm going to grab the camera, see if I can get it off the wall. Come on, there we go. Yeah. So you can see that plenum in there, which separates the cold side, which this is, and moving nice and slow, just from air outside blowing. That tells me the fan's in good shape, the bearings are nice. And then on this side is the cold section. And so what you got to do is, again, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and then that plenum comes off. So not much to that. And we take this off. There. And you can see this channel right here has to line up with this breaker here. That thing splits the plenum. So once you get that off, then you can kind of see what we're working with. Now this unit has a heat element in it. You can see it there. That yours may not, but you see that little wire stuck into the fins there? That's your temperature sender for the antifreeze. And I believe what that is supposed to do is, when this thing gets down to 32 degrees, it shuts the compressor off and lets the fan keep running. It just cycles the compressor so that this thing doesn't get super cold below freezing and freeze up. And if that thing dies, and it is just plugged in up there, little red, where 2 little red connectors where it says freeze, that's all it is. It's just a 2-wire connector and does that. So you just got to pull that out. I may have to cut that tie wrap to get it out of there, but you just got to pull that out, and that thing is just pressed in to the plenum. So I'm going to show you that in a second. So now we got this, and all you got to do is pull it out. And that's all it is. It is just a temperature probe. That's all that thing is. So now we're going to go up here and we're going to disconnect the freeze plugs here, and looks like I may have to cut a couple of tie wraps. So we're going to do that and get that out of there, and then we're going to test it, and we're going to test the new one and see if they give me any different readings. Okay, there's the probe. We got it out. Just had to cut a couple of tie wraps. And it's connected, and we are at, according to this, 39.6 K ohms. So 39 kilo ohms, getting up to almost 40. And this is going to be temperature dependent, I would expect. Let's see if we can do something here. Yeah, now see how that's dropping? I am pinching it in between my fingers, so it's heating up, and this resistance is going down. So it may be working. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my new one, which the only real difference seems to be is it has blue. So I'm going to open the new one and we're going to test it. Alright, so one thing I'll say is there's the part number, 7330A323. And this one is also 7330A323, but the bag says 7330A3231. So the last one isn't on either of them. But now these are both the same temperature effectively. They're in the room and they are the same temperature. But look at the difference here. I've only got 10 kilo ohms at, let's say, 75 degrees, where the other one I had 50, and when I started heating it up it was dropping. So that one, something is wrong, I would think, with the range on this now. Something has gone awry in this little resistor in here, that it is not giving the correct reading. So that is very cool. I was wondering if I was going to find a difference there, and this may be it. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to install it. I can unhook it. Okay, all you got to do for this, it just has to go back up in there. There it is, nice and deep. And then we got to plug these back in up here where it says freeze. There it goes. Okay. And now we're going to tie wrap those wires a little bit, and then we're going to put it back together, and then we're going to start it up really cold. We're going to let it run and rip and see how long it runs, see if it doesn't freeze up. I think that may have been my problem. So for $7 versus $700, I'm going to call that a pretty good fix. Okay, so we got her back together, got a few little tie wraps up there, make sure it's not going to come apart. And now we're going to start putting it back together. This is always kind of fun because you want to make sure you line this up with that plenum. She's got to be right. The rest of that, I know looks a little floppy, but the rest of that's going to be held in place by the other piece. All right, you take this piece, and I believe this can go in either direction. Yeah, I think it can. So we're gonna put it up like that. Done. Now, the other thing you got to do, you got to make sure these filters are clean. Because it only draws on this end, you can run them for a while and then flip them around before you clean them. But these filters need to be clean. Because if you restrict that airflow, that's another reason why it can freeze up if everything else is okay. And the other thing you can do that might help is run your fan on high if you have the choice. More airflow, going to be better for the heat transfer. Back together. We will now turn it on. And we're going to let that run for a while, and then we're going to take a look at it. All right, another quick little data point. One I just fixed, running about 45-ish right now. This is getting stable at a little bit higher temperature, but 40 degrees is going to be more than adequate to cool this coach. And we're going to go look at the other one now, which I know has not had this freezing up problem, and we're going to compare it. So about in the same range, low to mid 40s. So that's good. I think that's another positive thing, is I don't want air so cold that it's going to freeze up there, because we put a lot of water. This is real humid down here. So we're at about 46 here, which is good. Go back, we'll check the other one again. Hopefully it's not getting too cold. A little bit cooler than the other one, but it's a little cooler in this room now too, because it's self-contained, and that other one was trying to cool the whole coach. So the fact that it's not getting below freezing like the other one was, I'm pretty happy. So we're gonna let that keep running. We're gonna see how it does.